Hola, ¿qué tal? Soy Matías Rebolledo y estamos aquí en la Seminci, en la Semana Internacional del Cine de Valladolid, en la 70ª edición ya de este festival con muchísima solera. Ya sabéis que estamos aquí en Kinótico, en este set audiovisual por el que va a pasar lo mejor del talento nacional e internacional estos días aquí en Pucela, desde el corazón, desde las tripas del Teatro Calderón. Parte de ese talento pasa también por los homenajeados, la gente que va a recibir homenajes aquí en Valladolid, y una de las espigas de honor, esa última, Mia Hansen-Løve, director. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you so much for being here. You are going to be awarded with the Espiga de Honor here in Valladolid. The very first question is it's an obvious one. How was that call? Where were you when they told you they want to give you an award in Spain?
I think I was at home working, and I was struggling with the financing of my next film, which I have been doing for the last 3 years. So, getting an award for my work is, of course, it's always a joy and an honor to be rewarded. But when you are, I guess it's even more like this when you are actually struggling with your work. It regains your self confidence or something.
Mm-hmm. I was telling you just before the interview, we met each other in Valencia. They awarded you also their retrospective award in there. Do you feel beloved here in Spain? Do you feel?
I do. I mean, I don't get that many awards in France. Actually, I think Spain must be one of the countries that has been the most generous with my work, and I feel very grateful for that. So my films have been distributed. I've been invited many times, and but I think it I don't know what it really says about my work, but I think it says something about the interest for art house films in Spain. I think there is a very strong film culture here.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking about to ask you about your next project. You've been working, as you said, for the last 3 years. Is that an industrial thing that it's very difficult to get projects done, or is it also a personal thing that you wanted to tell the story in the way that you want to tell?
I think it's both. I mean, I think it's difficult in general to make to be a director and try to preserve your voice and your ambition. And I think anyone who has tried that knows that it's difficult. But I also think that the difficulties I'm facing with this film have to do with the fact that my film is at a place that is really the worst, in the sense that it is quite ambitious, an expensive film, because it is a period film set through many years. Like the story takes place for many years, and it involves a lot of locations and characters, and so it is more expensive than any of my previous films were. But it's still a very, very personal and very much one of my films. So it doesn't make the film more commercial, So it's I think it's probably the most difficult place to be when you are making a film that is doesn't really belong to your usual category, because in this business, unfortunately, it's a lot about categories. People expect you to do films this way or that way according to the so-called value of your films on the market, and my film is a little bit of a prototype in that sense, and I think when you are trying to make a prototype, that it gets really tough.
Have you ever feel like categorized by the industry in France, for example?
Of course I am, but everyone is. I mean, you can't escape that, I think.
Can you tell us in what stage it is? I know that there's got to be something under the wraps, but in what stage the project is?
Well, we have a large part of the financing now after 3 years battle. We have the cast, we have, I mean, a lot of work has been done, and hopefully I will be shooting next year. But I mean, we wanted to shoot last year and then this year, and now it's going to be next year, but I'm hopeful that it will happen.
Let's hope so. I wanted to ask you, when someone is awarded, for example, here in Seminci with this kind of award, I don't know, do you like think about those very first projects? Do you think about your whole career, or you don't have time to do that?
You mean if the fact that you're being awarded makes you think of a little bit, yes, because at least you know there is at least 1 or 2 days when you're just about to get the award and you start thinking of what you want to say when you will thank the people who are awarding you, and I think you can't escape facing the fact that you are looking at your own history or work and what you have done or achieved, and whether you want it or not, even if you don't want to look back and you just want to focus on the future, I think yes, when you receive an award like this, somehow you have to look at what has been done and think about it, even just for a second, you know.
I wanted to ask you about your origins as a film critic, and I wanted to ask you, do you ever stop being a film critic? Do you can in a way switch off that kind of switch that it's always over analyzing films?
I think I never really was a film critic, and I'm still trying to be one, you know, like for me it was a much easier or obvious or natural thing to become a director. I was trying to be a film critic during maybe 2 or 3 years, but I really struggled to articulate my ideas, and I am still very much interested in of course seeing the films and trying to find words to say what I think, and when I think this way, I think it is an important process, even as a director, to be able to put words on what you think. And in that sense, I think being a film critic, even for a short period, was a very important aspect of the process of becoming a director. But I still find it most of the time quite hard to find the right words to say especially why I love a film. I find it's much easier to criticize a film and say why you don't like it, why you reject, why you think this is wrong. But when you are overwhelmed by a film, when you are completely in love with the film, I find it harder to sometimes really explain why.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you this question as an author. Here in Seminci, we've been asking directors and writers about AI and how it disrupts, kind of disrupts the film industry. We've been hearing all kinds of inputs. For example, Paul Schrader just said that he loves it. Paul Schrader, the writer, Taxi Driver writer.
Oh, yeah,
He's been like pro AI. He's like been working with it. There's people that's extremely against it. You, as an author, how do you cope with that? What's your take on AI and how it helps or it doesn't help cinema?
It's difficult for me to answer that question because it still feels like something that is so far from me and my way of working that I almost don't feel I have the legitimacy to express an opinion on that. I would say instinctively I would be terrified by the idea of AI taking control on this industry, because it does seem like it's about to take some sort of control on many aspects of the industry. On the other hand, I hear some directors, friends who tell me about the great opportunities that AI gives, including in helping directors who don't have the money for their films to adapt, you know, like, for instance, for a period film, there are things you could do with AI that won't be as expensive to do as it would be to do it in reality. So I'm aware that AI also could give some opportunities to directors to somehow extend their field of their freedom or field of experimentations. So I know it will depend how it will be used, but overall I would still say that like the main feeling is a bit of worry. Although for now, I still have the feeling that the industry should worry, like the part of the film industry that really wants to make commercial films, I feel should worry more about this than us, because my feeling is that it's going to be more difficult to, for instance, if we talk about scripts, to reproduce the way scripts are written in you know, in the more commercial side of this film business.
Yeah.
By AI seems like a very easy thing to do, but I think imitate to Jim Jarmusch film or a Bigan film or an Albert Serra thing with AI seems like a tougher thing to do for AI. But maybe I'm being naive here. So really, I have no certitudes, only questions and worries.
I do have one last question. Just this week in France, there was a proposal in Parliament about cutting tax incentives in France, and it was rejected. But the debate was there.
About cutting?
Tax incentives.
Cutting them?
Yeah,
like
for shootings in France.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was rejected. Hope we are glad of that. But I wanted to ask you, why do you think that culture or cinema in this kind of aspects has become like a battlefield for politicians in order to, play with people's careers and people's lives and people's food even? So why do you think that cinema has become a cultural battle for politicians right now?
Well, I guess we should not underestimate the importance that culture has for politicians, and at a time where the extreme right is trying to take power a bit everywhere in the democracies around the world, I think we should all be aware of the culture being one of the keys actually of the battle. We should not think that those people are not interested in what we think and what we do and how it looks like. So yes, I do think that culture, whether we want it or not, is something that is that is more touchy than ever in the context. And I hadn't heard about I didn't read about this tax incentive thing, like that this decision was almost done. But what I can say is that, for instance, on my film, we are probably going to not be able to shoot in France, even if a part of my film takes place in France, and that's because there is not enough money allowing us to make it. So we end up being in this weird situation where we need to gather funds from all over Europe to be able to make the film done. And it's a bit, it sounds probably a bit surprising because France is a very strong country for film culture, for cinema, very supportive of cinema in many ways, but still we can't make my film in France with what we can find there. So it just tells you that it's still the situation of the film industry when you're trying to make a certain kind of film is still very fragile.
Well, thank you so much for your sincerity and let's hope the best for your film.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Nosotros, ya sabéis, vamos a seguir aquí en Kinótico, en Pucela, contando todo lo que ocurra en esta 70ª edición de la Seminci de Valladolid. Todo en kinótico.es, la primera con K, la segunda con C.